Welcome everyone. This is your astrology forecast for full moon in Leo, and this one is happening on the 1st of February. And I hope the sound will be good because it's raining here, obviously, but I really wanted to record it outside because it's much more beautiful and natural and more inspiring for me and for you who are there listening. And this full moon is preceding lunation before the eclipse, and this is new eclipse. It's eclipse that marks the beginning of a new 18-year cycle that will be happening in Aquarius and Leo, but we'll talk about this in 2 weeks when we have the actual eclipse happening, new moon solar eclipse in Aquarius. But this full moon is the one that precedes this eclipse, so it's also very important and will be related to this eclipse that is happening. I mean, everything is connected after all. Everything is in relationship with something else in one way or another. And mostly we are missing to see this bigger picture of everything. And this year really started in a crazy electrical way. And we're about to see how it's going to unfold. And this full moon is really a magnificent doorway, a portal that is being opened. And it's really a philosophical, psychological, archetypal, and initiatory teaching about what it means to be human and what it means to be visible and to be joyful and creative, to be proud, to be wounded and alive at the same time. And this is where astrology and mythology and occult teachings all come together. You know, we cannot talk about only one aspect, one side of the story. We have to include everything, just like when we are looking into our natal charts. We have to include every transit, every aspect, every position, not only the sun sign or moon sign or ascendant, but really have to take a look at everything. And this is, you know, the Leo energy is the heart energy. It's when our heart chakra opens. So it may be uncomfortable for some because our heart, there is a quote, I think it's from Rumi, of course, keep breaking your heart until it opens. So in order for our hearts to open, we have to go through some brokenness, right? But we've already been there. And now we just have to see that this door is really already opened. We just have to recognize it. But we are still blind to it because we are habitually we are habitually hypnotized and blinded, you know, to stay in the same, to stay stuck. And this is when the heart demands to be lived truly, to be heard out loud, to be lived out loud. And it rises like a torch inside our chests, you know, because Leo is our chests, and it also rules that heart area. And it says, here I am, you know, this is who I am. This is, you know, similar to Aries energy, because Aries is affirmation I am, but Aries is the first fire sign, Leo is the second fire sign. So it's very much related to that fiery energy and affirmation, but Leo is more proud of who I am, and it's more like doesn't have it's already seen, and you know, this is what I love. It's more like affirmation of this is who I am and this is what I love. This is what makes me feel alive. And you know, the ruler, the fifth house ruled by Leo, it's joy, pleasure, entertainment, fun, laughter, celebration. It's energy of playfulness and spontaneity and sovereignty. So this full moon illuminates the part of us that wants to be seen, that wants to be chosen, that wants to be celebrated and desired, that wants to be recognized and loved. So this is not for what we produce, but for who we are. And it's tricky energy. I'll get there soon. And because, you know, every full moon represents an opposition between the moon and the sun. This is their meeting. They are looking at each other, the sun and the moon. And this moon in Leo is standing face to face with the Sun and Venus in Aquarius. So it's much more about, really what we love and what we do because we know that others love when we do this. This is the opposition between us and them, but it's an illusion. Us and them is an illusion. So every full moon really is a reminder for us that shows us that everything is whole, but that we are all unique in it. And the heart is looking at the mind. The heart, Leo, and the mind, Aquarius. And this is where the personal is looking at the collective. Personal, Leo, collective, Aquarius. This is need to be special, Leo, looking at the need to be equal, Aquarius. This is the desire for applause, Leo, and that desire is looking at the desire for truth, Aquarius. So this is very, very existential conversation, really. And this is the heart versus the crowd. But it's not versus, there is no battle. We have to see that we can work in both realms, in both dimensions. We can be our own authentic selves, unique personalities, and still be a part of the group. And Leo says, I want to be loved personally. I want to matter as a unique individual. I want my life to be an expression of my heart. And Aquarius says, no one is special. And everyone is equal. The future matters more than your feelings. So under this full moon, something inside us asks, do I matter? Do my feelings matter? Does my joy matter? Does my creativity matter? Or am I only valuable if I'm useful to the collective? And this full moon exposes the quiet grief we carry when we feel unseen in a world that is obsessed with productivity and success. So it also expresses the quiet narcissism we carry when we believe we deserve more love than others. And this is strong. Leo, the shadow side of Leo, can go into that egocentric behavior and this Leo part in us really wants us to think that we are special, but not in that magical way, but that we are special so that we are better than everyone else, and that we are competing with others, and that we are, have to be treated like kings or queens. But actually, we need to be treated like kings or queens by ourselves. And we have to learn to treat others in the same way. And this lunation is not here to flatter us. It's really here to humanize us because of Aquarius polarity. And, Leo archetype is not truly and essentially about ego or arrogance or attention seeking. It's the heart's will to exist, actually. It's the will of the heart. And it rules kingship, it rules sovereignty and creative fire. It rules consciousness and state of being of a child. That pure state of being, of creation, pure creativity, pure potential. And it rules joy and playfulness and pleasure, charisma and radiance, all these things that bring us into that special state of being where we are able to create and be creative. And Leo is the archetype of that inner child who survived long enough to still want to play. And this is very important because when we are kids, we easily lose the track of time when we are playing anything. We can invent games easily. We can get lost in just using some objects and pretending that those objects are alive, and we lose the track of time. And this ability is priceless. And when we grow up, we lose that ability. So this Leo full moon is here to remind us that we have that ability to imagine and to create from our imagination, to really lose the track of time, because time keeps us in that. Well, time is necessary, of course, but when we are ruled by time and when we think that time is really real, well, we lose the connection with the spirit, actually. And this is how we get stuck in fear of old age as well, because we are afraid of time passing by. And like every year I'm older, but as I said somewhere before in one of my videos, it's not about getting older, it's about getting wiser and being refreshed and regenerated and rejuvenated. And full moons are times when things that have been hidden or suppressed come to life and they become visible. Things that have been invisible become visible. Things that we've been ignoring or avoiding come to the surface so that we can face them and confront them and do something with them or release something. So we are now releasing blocks that keep us away from experiencing pure joy. And this is the part of us that says, I am here and I want to enjoy being alive. And that's it. Everything else is distortion, really. So we are learning that, you know, that that phrase that grass is greener somewhere else. Well, grass should be greener wherever we stand. Wherever we are, the grass is greener because we carry that energy. It's not about some place out there or some circumstances out there. It's us. It's our choice. And our choices, our inner state of being is what changes the external circumstances. So yes, it can seem that when we move somewhere else, it's better. But initially, it came from our own inner state of being. And the most important thing is how we treat each other. This is really most important thing. Not some, you know, high spiritual practices, techniques, being successful, proving our worth, not fasting, not prayers, not meditations or right diet or exercises or going to ashrams or visiting Kailash, I don't know, or experiencing enlightenment. None of this matters when we face our conscience. And, you know, the most important thing that will matter will be how we treated others. And this is really, you know, question like, did we make others angry, sad, betrayed? Did we make them, do we make them feel angry? Do we make them feel unstable? Do we make them feel wrong? Do we make them doubt themselves? Or do we make others feel loved, understood, taken care of? Do we make them feel strong and powerful? Do we inspire them? You know, that's really the question. So what do we do? How do we treat others? How we treat ourselves? And what we expect from others, how to treat us. This will be very, very important because, you know, Leo Aquarius sex is very significant for how we treat ourselves and others. And, you know, people are working on fixing their looks, but nobody is really fixing their relationship with their souls, with their heart. So it's not really about fixing. We don't have to fix anything, but, you know, what kind of relationship are we nurturing? What relationship are we cultivating? So are we working on our looks or on our hearts? And, you know, untreated wounds, untreated brokenness, you know, these things are very important because Leo also rules that part in us, that child within us. And this is not the inner child that is ruled by Cancer, but it's very similar because Leo comes after Cancer and it still carries that innocence and the potential of that creative child consciousness. So, you know, little kings and queens that parents make their children believe they are. And of course, every child and person is the king and queen. But if we are treated like that, for example, and we believe that we are kings or queens, and then we grow up in this realm, in this material reality, and we grow up and realize that things are not so simple, and we are not kings or queens in that way, and life is full of everything. Or if our parents treated us badly, and, you know, this creates another complex that is also very similar to this one. It's not really a big difference. These are inferiority complexes and self-grandeur complexes. So we carry both, really. And just as we have two hemispheres of the brain and everything is in polarities here, and so we have two parents, right? We all have to have mother and father. We cannot exist with mother and father. Even if they are not present in our life, of course, we would not be able to be here without two of them, without masculine and feminine. So, these complexities and complexes always come in pairs. So, broken psyche, unregulated nervous system, unacknowledged wounds. This is what creates all the mess, not some evil forces out there. And these are centuries of psychological manipulation and the indoctrination of fear. And I'm talking about this because it's opposing Aquarius and it's Leo, the joy. So all of this is working towards taking away that joy from us so that we are joy free, and we should be joyful. And fear and news and everything that we experience nowadays, and of course always, I guess, and all the history and everything is somehow putting us in that state of being where that joy is taken away from us. And when we grow up, there is that period of time between childhood and adolescence, and when we start seeing things as childish, like we cannot play anymore the way we used to. We are embarrassed of that because now we are grown-ups. And this is exactly that moment where we lose that connection with the joy and our heart. This is where we enter the grown-up world, where we have to struggle, to fight, to prove, to compete, and of course we have to go through this experience. We have to lose our joy, allegedly lose, and then we are learning how to come back to ourselves. And it's not an easy game, but it's amazing, and it's full of everything. Anything can happen. And as I was talking about these broken psyches and childhood complexes, we grow up and then we would rather blame invisible forces for our own bad behavior than take responsibility for what we choose to do. So avoidance is disguised as spirituality, and responsibility is becoming a fantasy. Really, it's becoming a myth. And blaming is an excuse. It's a distraction. And if the problem is not from this world, then it's easier to avoid facing it. In that case, we never have to confront ourselves. And we see this happening more and more, like something is happening somewhere there, the other side of the world, or some evil forces are to blame for all that is happening. So it's much easier, because when that is somewhere far away, we never have to face ourselves. And the only real battle has always been and always will be inner battle. This is the only real battle. All other battles that we experience are illusionary. And trauma against healing. That's the game. And we have built our whole lives based on avoiding pain, or on glorifying it, and denial destroys us. When we face ourselves, nightmare transforms into something beautiful. And when we don't feel happiness in ourselves, we focus on what others need. This is very important to understand, especially for those who always try to help others, to save others, to fix others, to be there for others, to see what they're missing, to be there for them. This is when we don't feel happiness in ourselves. We focus on what others need and what they're missing. When we are not aligned, we start noticing how others are misaligned. As long as we are running away from our own faults, we'll continue seeing faults wherever we look. And it's very simple, We see what we avoid. I mean, the things that we don't like, that we see, are things that we avoid facing within ourselves. And we avoid accepting that this exists. And we are, it's so easy to say that they are unconscious, they are senseless, it's their fault, they are dumb, stupid, blind, deaf, they worship the wrong god, they think wrong thoughts, they feel wrong feelings. It's them who need to be stopped and who need to be changed, transformed, or destroyed, and then everything will miraculously be all right, and it's allegedly my job to teach them. It's our job to teach those others around us that we don't accept, to punish them or to save them. And this is where we become judgmental and criticizing, trying to prevent those people from having their own experience, from being who they are. And this is selfish. This is Leo and also Aquarius. Aquarius is they, the others. And Leo is, here I come to the stage. Now this is my role to play, to show them how to live and to show them what's wrong. We start playing gods, or we start playing gurus, experts, the one who knows. This is how we suppress our vulnerability, our shame, our doubts, our imperfections and our faults. And we focus on imperfections of others and ignore our own deficiencies. We somehow feel better than others if we can find as many faults as we can in them. So we don't stop looking. We always search for mistakes in others because this makes us feel better. And this is also Virgo archetype. And we see that Leo, Virgo, and Libra carry a lot of that need for perfection. They all carry this strongly, these three signs. And Leo is the most personal sign in the zodiac. Very personal, ruled by the sun, the center of everything. And, they love to be in the center of attention. So we may now, during this time, have that need to be in the center of attention. Or we may be witnessing those who want to be in the center of attention. But it's not our job to blame them or criticize them, but to really see through it all, to see where it all comes from and where it goes and how these things rule the psyche. And this is how we separate ourselves from the big ocean of humanity. When we think we can control others or fix others or, make them feel small so that we feel better. And, controlling others we think that controlling others will bring some kind of relief or peace. When they change, I'll be good. When my partner changes, when my family changes, when my house changes, when government changes. So this is how parents get into trap of shaping their children on their own, playing gods again, turning them into their little projects. And Leo in fifth house is ruling children. And we may see this strongly, and many parents will bring this to their awareness of what they're doing to their children, of how they're playing gods with them. And, these are great lies and beginnings of all wars, when we are playing gods in this way. So maybe in micro world, it doesn't matter, we see that happening everywhere. And within our families, within our friendships, within our intimate relationships, at our work, with our co-workers, playing gods, like everyone with someone, trying to dominate. And the question is, what am I running from when I'm doing this? What am I running from? What are you running from? What are we running from? We have been taught from our early age to silence ourselves for the sake of apparent peace and good relationships with others. But we, have to stand in the crowd. There is a great quote from one writer from Balkans, and he said, "It's warm in the crowd, but it stinks." I think it was Miroslav Krleže. And, it's warm in the crowd, but it stinks. So we have been taught to respect opinions of others more than our own, and to silence our own opinion because other people's opinions are more important. We grew up like this because we listened to those who are older, more experienced, and to accept that it is all for our own good, to allow those closest to us to cut our wings and to mold us in their boundaries. And it doesn't really, it didn't have to be some big or apparent way of doing this, but it's happening in very small ways. Like, this is how we shape our reality later. If we are told that we cannot achieve something or that something is impossible, we start losing that magic. And like, where do you think you're going to fly with those dreams of yours, with those fantasies? You have to grow up to do the real thing, to enter the real world. And they want to ground us. Us. This is illusion, but this is the program that we are now breaking. We are breaking this code. It's happening collectively, really, and it's unstoppable. And we believed them, and we started living lives of others, of those who taught us, of teachers, parents. They all did the best they had, but we started living their lives. And same, without imagination, without hope, only survival. And where is joy? Where is true joy? Not temporary borrowed joy, not joy that I'm paying with money, not pleasures and entertainment, not drinking and using substances, not playing video games and endlessly watching movies or TV shows to get some thrill and live through them. We started living their patterns. So we become infected by fear and our dreams begin to drown. So we have compensated our dreams for their dreams. And now we're learning that joy is our choice. And it takes courage to make that choice. But this is where we are now. I mean, we are here at this point for quite some time, especially since 2020, when Pluto and Saturn met in Capricorn. This is when we started entering into some real changes, and it's not stopping, really. And this full moon in Leo is very important because it precedes this eclipse in Aquarius. Pluto is in Aquarius, age of Aquarius, and Leo will be very important too, because when we enter a certain age, like now entering age of Aquarius, this is where we're going to see the opposition of Leo, of course, and the shadow side of it. So we have to be prepared for dealing with these energies in a mature way. And this full moon is not here to bring logic, but to bring emotional truth, the opening of the heart. And it may bring sudden emotional outbursts and dramatic realizations, heartbreaks, confessions, creative potential, very strong, romantic crises as well, or jealousy. It may bring up pride wounds and hunger for attention, and also exhaustion from pretending not to care. And this one is big. So we will see this in our own behavior or in behavior of others. So people may flirt more, fight more, confess more, perform, crave validation, crave applause, praise, approval, respect and recognition. And this is because the heart doesn't want to be silent anymore, and it really wants to be heard. It's the roaring of the lion, the heart of the sun. We are going there, to the heart of the sun, as I always talk about when I speak about Leo energies. And these complexes that I mentioned, inferiority complex and self-grandeur complex, these are two shadows of Leo, and it's crucial. Leo rules both the fantasy of being superior and the terror of being invisible. And these are the same wounds, really. So inferiority complex, this is where we can collapse and fall into. This is when we think like, no one cares about me, I don't matter, others are better than me, I shouldn't take up space, and so on. This is, where Leo part in us hides, apologizes, shrinks, and resents. So we may feel this energy where we are falling into that state of being where we feel that everyone else is better than us, that we are not, that we don't earn success, we don't get to earn to experience joy, and feeling guilty when we are happy. All these things very absurd, but of course it's hard to get out of that state. It's our mental prison, and this full moon is here to break the chains of that prison. And the self-grandeur complex, this is where Leo is inflated, can say, I deserve more than others, and I'm more special than the rest. Why am I not being praised? People should recognize my brilliance. And this is where Leo part in us performs, dominates, competes, and resents. So we may be faced with both of these complexes and both of these states of beings, and they may go like up and down. And both come from the same root, a wounded heart that never felt truly seen. And this full moon brings that wound to the surface so that we can see it, and that we can remember that joy is our birthright. Joy is not some luxury. I mean, it is in a way that, it's a real luxury, but it's our birthright. And we have traded that luxury for some other luxury. We have compensated true luxury for illusionary and artificial luxury. And, do we really need that applause? And this full moon asks something brutally honest. Do we actually want to create our life and joy, or do we want to be applauded? Do we actually want to love and be in love, or do we want to be chosen and feel special because of that? Do we actually enjoy our life, or do we want to look impressive? Do we want to impress others? And do we truly want joy, or we want admiration? Very, very important questions, and we should write them down, and really whatever we are going through, to ask ourselves this. Whatever we're doing or intending, or when we are reacting, let's ask ourselves this. And this lunation strips away false motivation. It shows us where our creativity, relationships, and ambitions are driven by hunger for validation. And, are we truly able to love, or are we only seeking for that validation and admiration? This is the story of competition, comparison, and, life that is full of performance. And Leo full moon exposes our addiction to comparison. So we compare our bodies all the time. We compare our relationships. We compare our careers. We compare our creativity. We even compare our happiness and sadness. And it's insane. It's really insane when we can really bring some things to awareness. We will see that these things are absurd. And we turn life into a stage, and this whole life is a stage actually. And we start competing with our friends, with our lovers, with strangers, with even destiny itself, with life. We compete with everything, with nature. And this full moon is here to say that, we are not in competition with life. We are in relationship with life. We are life itself. And it's about creativity, joy, and spontaneity. And Leo rules laughter, playfulness, creativity, vital energy, art, dance, drama, pleasure, entertainment, all these things. And it asks, why does everything in our life require justification? Why my joy needs permission? Why my creativity needs monetization? Why my pleasure needs productivity? Why my laughter needs explanation? Or, do we need a manual for having fun? Do we need a manual for being in the state of joy? Do we need a teacher to laugh from our belly? Do we need some productivity trick to feel joy? And this full moon says that our joy should be revolutionary. It's not some irresponsible childish thing. It's mandatory for the sake of existence of this whole life. And this fire and flame of Leo is here to ignite that spark within us and to turn on our inner flame. And fire is not aggression, it's animation, and it's the thing that makes life worth living. Fire is very, very mystical and multi-layered element, but I don't have time now to speak about the element of fire so much. But when this fire is suppressed and ignored, and when we use it to burn others and to burn ourselves, this is when we become depressed, cynical, cruel, addicted, and numb, and many other things, of course, that we don't like. And because joy is fuel for our nervous system, and this full moon is here to reignite those extinguished parts in us. So the shadow expression of this full moon could be jealousy, seeking attention, going through romantic drama, experiencing emotional manipulation and emotional blackmail, and we may be, performing pain for gaining sympathy from others. This is very important. This is what we may be seeing very much, performing pain for sympathy. And the highest expression of this full moon would be honesty of the heart, heart-to-heart conversations, heart-to-heart relations, opened heart, creative courage, being courageous to be in the state of joy despite everything, and not to give in to fear that is being imposed on us through everything, on every corner. Joyful self-expression, playful intimacy, healthy pride, not arrogant pride, and leadership through warmth and generosity. Ability to celebrate others as well, not only ourselves, or having a need to be celebrated by others. Celebrating others, very important. And the tarot card that is related to Leo is, of course, strength. And this card shows a woman who is gently closing a lion's mouth, and she's holding that mouth, but gently. This is feminine principle, gentleness. No need for that physical strength or aggression, but intuition, kindness, gentleness, warmth, creativity, not through force, but through love. And this is the mastery of instinct through compassion. And it teaches that true strength is not that what we have been taught through everything, but true strength is really emotional sovereignty. And, this is Leo in its highest expression. And, let's ask ourselves, what makes us feel alive? What truly makes us feel alive? Where do we feel unseen? And where do we perform instead of live? We should be able to create something without having a need for it to be seen by anyone. Let's sing for ourselves. Let's dance for ourselves and to ourselves. Of course, to others, but not for their praise, but because we are doing it for our heart. And, we can write, paint, just for you. And, choose joy without justification. Let's do one thing purely because it's fun. No need for productivity out of that joy and fun. And, let's notice when and where do we crave that validation, and when do we compare the most. And, this is very, very powerful time for us to be aware and to be in that state of joy and to recognize when fear starts consuming us. And there is a very simple story that I like, and it talks about one famous musician who who became popular and started filling stadiums. Thousands came to hear him play. And one evening after the concert, a child approached him and said, "I liked it better when you played alone under the tree in the park." And the musician was a bit offended. And he said, "Do you know how many people just applauded me?" And the child replied, "Yes, but tonight you were playing for them. Under the tree, you were playing for yourself." And this is the big difference. Can we do this? Can we enter this state of being? And, our joy is really not luxury. It's our birthright. And we are not here to be impressive, but to be alive. And there are a couple of great quotes. One is from Carl Jung, and it says, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And there is one more from him that says, "Nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment and especially on their children than the unlived life of the parent." Unlived life of the parent. Are we all building our lives based on that unlived life of a parent? And, we should never depend on admiration of others. And let's make ourselves independent of the good opinion of others. And there is another great quote from one philosopher called Kierkegaard. He said, "The most common form of despair is not being who you are." And with this, I would end this forecast, and I hope that we can all find that source of joy within ourselves, because it's right there. And let's bring that joy truly and purely. Let's live from the heart, no matter how courageous we have to be to do it. Let's choose joy. I love you all and see you in 2 weeks. Bye bye.